This is Between the Uprights.
Football is life. The rest is just details.
Here are your hosts, Joe, Matt, and Chris.
Much like every other star that seems to be wearing a Cleveland Browns uniform, Myles Garrett, who has obviously been the cornerstone of this team since he got drafted there and is only behind TJ Watt when it comes to total sacks since then, has requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns. Now, a lot of people are saying that it's because the quarterback play there, about the talent level there, how the front office handled things. I think that, you see the success that Baker Mayfield has had this year being a 4,000-yard guy and kind of what happened with the Deshaun Watson debacle, which was clearly a bad idea from the get-go. I don't know why they thought that and how they mortgaged their future there. That was ever going to be a good idea. I guess they hoped that he would return to form, which he never has. In fact, he's probably never seen the field again after his latest slew of injuries. And then you start to look at the rest of the talent on there. They're not in a position to pick a top quarterback this year. They're probably not in a position really to do anything much of any sort of splash this year. So Myles Garrett has requested a trade, even though the GM has been adamant that they will not trade Myles Garrett. And the big problem you run into is that he's entering his age 30 season. If you don't trade him, you're getting significantly less return the longer you wait. He's only got 2 years left on his contract. He could hold out, which I'll get into later when I say my piece about this. He could decide to show up and be a consummate professional and try to force his trade a different way. It all depends. But right now, this is clearly a toxic situation between Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns. There was some preliminary talks in the offseason or during the season and all those other things where he wanted to know what their plan was moving forward with the quarterback position and the talent. And apparently those talks were not conducive. Those were not popular talks. Those were not things that were going to go well didn't go well. And that's where we are now with Myles Garrett requesting a trade that ultimately I can't blame him for, but I'm going to go to my panel here. I'm going to get their inputs on this. So Sammy, I'm going to go to you first on this one here, man. Obviously, Myles Garrett is still a stalwart talent. I haven't seen any sort of signs of him slowing down, even though he is pretty much the only person on that defense who's performing and is a central focal point for everybody. I mean, if you look at an offensive line sheet of who they got to worry about, there's only one name when you face the Cleveland Browns, and it's Myles Garrett. So how do you see this unfolding for Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns?
I mean, look, I don't think Cleveland wants to just let him walk either. But it's clear he doesn't want to be there anymore. And it has nothing to do with, and I think Cleveland respects the fact that, they're in a really, really hard division. They're in a really difficult division. Their QB situation is still not figured out to this day. There are so many uncertainties within that franchise. It was a matter of time before Myles Garrett asked for a trade. And it's not like Myles Garrett has done nothing for the city, because he's done more than enough for the city of Cleveland. The record for most sacks in their 20s is Reggie White at 108.0. Myles Garrett has 102.5. So he turns 30 until at, I believe, December is his birthday. So he has a chance to break that record, right? We got to realize, you're not going to I would imagine they want to give him an extension, but it's not smart to give him an extension because there are so many other spots you need, including quarterback, that just need to be addressed. No better opportunity to trade him than now. He's still very productive at his age. He's not quite past his prime yet. He could still be productive, and I can think of already 4 teams that would give up a lot to trade for a guy like Myles Garrett. A team that comes to mind is the Commanders. Another team that comes to mind, the Bills. I feel like the Bills have never had a premier pass rush. Hello, this is your chance now. And on top of that, there are, again, so many other teams that could I'm going to leave other teams up for discussion for the rest of the two, but this is also very good for the Browns. And I'll tell you why. The Browns need picks. They need to get something. And Myles Garrett, luckily for them, is worth those picks. They need to bring in more talent. and because they don't have talent, good enough talent right now to compete in an NFC or rather an AFC North that is very, very hard to compete in. So with that being said, I think this is an easy decision for both the Browns to make. I think this was an easy trade request for Myles Garrett to make. I don't think Cleveland is looking at this. Obviously, they're upset. I think Cleveland fans are all like in unison, very, very upset. But I think Cleveland fans are also rational enough to know he's done so much for this organization. It's only right we give him to a contender that's gonna give them, that's trying to win right now. Give us your picks. Let's start this thing all over. We love you, Myles Garrett. You're probably gonna have your jersey retired here. It's just not gonna work out.
Yeah, and so based on the numbers right now, if they were to cut him now, it'd be about 36 million in dead cap, about 16 million in savings between I believe it's March 31st and I think June 1st cut line. It's 54 million in dead cap. They save almost 34 million in cap space if they do it that way for 2025. And then obviously the trades are a little different how that's all going to work out. They save significantly more money post June 1st. Trading him than they would after June 1st or any other situation, if I believe, or pre-June 1st, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that number right now. Yeah, a pre-June 1st trade would be 36 million in dead cap, 16.5 million in cap savings. That I think is it really doesn't change, today till the 16th if they release him, which I don't think they'll do. Post June 1st, it's only $5 million cap savings with dead money in both 2025 and 2026, equating of that about $36 million. So it does make significantly more sense for them to trade him pre-June 1st if they're going to do it. It would make sense before getting to the draft to do it in April, at the end of April there. Clearly, there's a lot that has to go on, but they have the second overall pick. There's a lot of people saying that Myles Garrett is going to take at least a first rounder to get him out of there. Someone shopped to the GM that it would be 2 first round picks for Myles Garrett. He said nope, wouldn't do it at the time. Clearly, that may have changed at this point, but 2 first round picks for a team that is in a full rebuild and needs help at multiple positions. Plus, let's not forget here that you have that this draft, if it's strong anywhere, is on the defensive side of the ball, and Abdul Carter is sitting there for the taking. At number 2, he could be a plug and play guy that you replace Myles Garrett with for significantly cheaper. And you go, hey, we get a younger guy, we can build with him, and we get more picks. That makes a lot of sense, especially if you can get another first rounder in this draft, because even though you have questions at the quarterback position, this isn't the draft for that. This is not. Even if you look at number 2 and you go, oh, we'll get Cam Ward, maybe Shedeur Sanders, if you think he's going to plug in there. But are any of these quarterbacks able to walk into what you have right now and perform and do well? I don't think so. But I'm going to go to Chris, man. Chris, I don't know how this plays out for either of these in a way that doesn't end in a trade for it to be beneficial for both of them.
So to be 100%, I don't think anybody's necessary. I mean, maybe it's a little surprising, but seeing as all the craziness as far as trades that have gone on, sorry NBA fans, heard a lot of it that's going on this last week.
Fire Nico.
Hey, right, so I can't say I'm all that surprised. It's. I think it might be a little funny that it's happening like right after that, because that was such a big moment, and then little right after that he's like, oh yeah, I'm gone. If they can do it, I'm gone, right? So like being 100% though, like let's be real. I think we all know that Garrett wants to fight for a chip, right? He's been in the league for a while. I don't think he's ever sniffed anything close to being Super Bowl contention. I think I agree with Sam when it comes to like he's given his all to that team, to that franchise, to that area, to those fans. He's done, I feel like, virtually all that he could do. He's broken a million different records. Like, what is the one thing that these players come into the NFL to do to begin with? Sure, money's always a motive, but it's always to fight for a Super Bowl. Always. That should be your number one thought going to the NFL, is to get your legacy by getting a Super Bowl. That's everybody's legacy trip right there. So, I think he made that very clear. And the Browns are nowhere near being discussed as a playoff team, let alone a Super Bowl contender. We've already talked about, like, basically they're to me they're decrepit. Their team is not very good. Quite honestly, I don't think their front office is very good. I don't think you get a lot from the ownership. So I feel like this is an organization that he's going to want to stick around for the next 3 or 4 years. You know, you already have one of their all pro guards who are talking about potentially retiring because he doesn't want to go through a rebuild, and that's exactly where they're at. I feel like they've been rebuilding every couple years, and they haven't really figured anything out. So I don't blame Garrett at all for wanting to move on. And quite honestly, if I'm Andrew Barry, I call Garrett. I ask him, you know, what if they have the same respect, and we'll get to. I know we're getting to Cooper Kupp, but if they have the same amount of respect that the Rams have for Cooper Kupp, you ask him where his preference is. You talk to those teams. You take the 3 highest and most viable packages. You show him his options. You let him choose where he wants to go. Case closed. Garrett moves on to a team where he can play or try to contend for a Super Bowl. You get the ammo that you need to start rebuilding again your team in hopes that it gets better, and you move the hell on. Like sometimes it's just not meant to work, and I'm sorry, but I feel bad for these high level players who, quite honestly, lose majority of the best parts of their careers on terrible teams simply because the VO like what do we say? Like you give them their all, right? Like it's loyalty. Loyalty is always a thing. Well, guess what? It's also business. If there's one thing I have not learned, or have learned, I should say, throughout my life and my career, and information I've gotten elsewhere, is that loyalty means nothing when it comes to business. Because if it's you or something they need, when you talking about a company, you're out of there. They don't care. So I feel like at this point, it shouldn't be a loyalty thing. He has things that he wants to go for. He has, career statuses that he's trying to get to. And it clearly doesn't have really much to do with going to Canton. He wants a Super Bowl ring, and I don't blame him. And just like, I know Sam brought up the Bills, which I feel like is a good spot if they choose to go into the inter part of, like a AFC trade, which I don't know, how willing they're going to be to do that. But they have a couple picks. They have a first round, they have 2 second rounds, and they have 3 fourth round picks. All you need to do, their biggest issue right now for the Bills is their cap space. I believe they're like bottom 7 when it comes to their cap space right now. They're over cap right now. So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to go to Josh Allen and ask him basically if he's willing to pull a Tom Brady move and agree to reconstruct his contract and see, if that's what he wants, if he really wants the ability to go for Super Bowls and they want to get over this hump being the Chiefs in the playoffs and getting to the Super Bowl. Myles Garrett could be your knight in shining armor. Like, you are what we've been waiting for. But that's going to have to be a call where they talk to Josh Allen and say, hey, are you willing? And if they are, I could see them going maybe a first, a second this year, a first, a second next year. And then you talk to Garrett about maybe trying to redo his deal and stay with that team for the next 3 or 4 years. Now, if they don't, you might look at someone like the Lions, right? I think, you look at a duo with Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson, and you can't tell me that you're not salivating trying to watch them on Sundays. Like, their defense is already ridiculous. And you add Myles Garrett to it, you're just asking for sparks. Like, it should be an amazing matchup, and it should be very close to what Garrett would be looking for. Like, they're not in the AFC, so that goes on the Browns side. They're not in the AFC. They're a Super Bowl contending team. Detroit weather should be similar to Cleveland, so that shouldn't bother him. You have a head coach in Dan Campbell, have a great fan base. You have a really good front office. You have really good ownership. It's a match made. And quite honestly, if you look at the Lions structure right now, for the most part, you can look at them going into this draft, which we all know hasn't really been set as being a really good draft class, and be like, we're willing to give up some picks this year. That's fine. Our setup is pretty well. You have a lot of young players on your team already. Y'all are already in contention based on what you already have. So cool. Give them a first, a second. Give them a first, a second next year. And maybe we might look at one in 2027 and then start looking at contracts. Like, I don't know specifically like what their process is or like where they're at as far as the salary caps. But if they can make that work, to me, that should be and would be, if I'm Myles Garrett, the place I want to be, because that is who all, I would say, through most of the people that watch the NFL, I feel like there is a clarity that everybody, for the most part, that I have seen want to see the Lions go to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl for that franchise. And I think that would be somewhere that Myles Garrett would want to go. But I wouldn't blame him at all that he wants to go. And I would say sooner rather than later. We see the Cooper Cup thing coming up. They're like, hey, it's immediate. Like, we're getting rid of you, essentially. It should be the same thing. I would say by the end of March, he should have somewhere he's going, and say la vie, over, done, and everybody's moving on.
Yeah. One thing I've always done in my career and noticed in my career is that you don't want people working for you that don't want to be there.
Yep.
Because you know what they don't do? Good work. If they don't want to be there and they don't want to do the work that they're doing, they're not going to do well. Yeah, the bare minimum. And here's the thing: you don't know. You said you didn't know what the Detroit Lions salary cap looked like. I'll tell you what their top 51 cap space looks like right now: $56.7 million. They could absorb Myles Garrett's contract as is, no questions asked, for the next 2 years. Wouldn't be a problem. They could even extend him if they wanted to. All right. They have a lot of rookies, a lot of youth on this team. Right. The highest paid player right now, Jared Goff, $32.6 million.
Yep.
So. I think the only thing about that is that I think they already got their guy, Aiden Hutchinson. So
yeah,
are they going to pay
one of them on one side and one on the other?
Yeah, right. Absolutely. It's just time. The time is going to come to pay the piper, and one of those, Jamison Williams, is going to have to go. Like one of the big guys, Kirby Joseph, Jamison Williams, maybe even a Brian Branch. Somebody big is there. Cleveland is gonna want to get a good piece of not just draft picks from Detroit. They're gonna want a player. Okay.
I mean, you could definitely.
I know they're 1,000% willing to do it. Go ahead and do it, and I wouldn't blame them. But then it's time they better make it count, because it's gonna be time to pay Aiden Hutchinson very soon.
It's an all-in move.
It's an all-in move, yeah.
But it's a Super Bowl. It's an all-in for a chip move, and I would be down for that. But you know, I'm kind of upset about this because our Lions homer on the podcast didn't get a chance to say anything about possibly Myles Garrett going to the Lions. Like, I feel like that would have been a Matt thing. That would have been a Matt thing.
No, don't apologize, Chris. That's exactly what he deserves. That's what he deserves.
That would have been a Matt thing to say. So I'm going to go to Matt and see what Matt thinks on this, you know, and do you think the Lions is a good fit, Matt, or where do you think Myles Garrett's playing in 2025?
First of all, I'm over here chilling. You guys are just like, I'm not even doing nothing over here. I'm just minding my own damn business, and I'm being attacked for no apparent reason.
We like a reminiscing when you were wrong, you know?
I'm always so nice to everyone, and everyone just comes in here and attacks me. This is unbelievable. What kind of turn of events is this? But listen, obviously that would be an amazing move for the Lions. And I mean, you're going to, if you're the Lions, like, obviously you're going to have to give up somebody, but like it would be worth it if you get Myles Garrett. Like, you end up with Myles Garrett and Aiden Hutchinson. There's no better pass rush duo in the NFL than that. You know, Aiden Hutchinson was on pace to win Defensive Player of the Year this year before he got hurt. Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year last year. You know, so that's that would be an incredible duo. And again, that was their weakness this year. Was their defense. You know, so but again, they've got a lot of issues on that team now, especially losing both of their coordinators to head coaching positions that they're going to have to kind of recoup. And Myles Garrett would help a lot of that. So, but as far as Myles Garrett goes, listen, Cleveland doesn't have to move him. Like they're under no like requirement to move him. Like, we've seen a bunch of stars ask for trades before, and then they never get traded and they sign an extension, or they never get traded and stuff happens. But because he's got 2 more years on his deal, and the Browns, like you mentioned, Joe, is gonna have to take around $36 million cap hit if they do trade him. So as far as that goes for the Browns, they're like, hey, we're already taking on Deshaun Watson's contract. If we trade Myles Garrett, you know, we're gonna have to bite another bullet as far as a giant amount of salary goes. You're gonna have to give us a bunch of picks and players if we want to trade Myles Garrett, because like I said, you don't they're under no requirement to trade him. Like, they can just throw him back out there even if he's disgruntled, you know. So to me, I think what they should do is they should cut Deshaun Watson, and they should just trade Myles Garrett and just bite the bullet on all of that cap, because even if you keep those guys, like you guys were talking about, like, they're not going to be good next year. Like, what's the best case scenario for the Browns next year? 6 wins, you know, 7 wins maybe, you know. Like, I don't even think that's like I said, best case scenario. Like, that's like, if you're thinking about the best thing to happen to the Browns next year, it's 6 or 7 wins. And, you know, it's what's the what's the good of really winning 6 or 7 games? It really doesn't matter, like you might as well just be terrible. So I think they should take the hit on Deshaun Watson, just cut him, let him do his thing, and then trade Myles Garrett and get as much as you can for obviously as much as you can for getting Myles Garrett, be asked for like 3 years, rebuild, and then hopefully by the time all that money is off the books, you're ready to contend, so and you have a team that's quality, but for as far as Garrett himself, like anybody who like watches football knows Myles Garrett and knows what Myles Garrett's capable of. 6-time Pro Bowler, 4-time first team All-Pro, like I mentioned earlier, 2023 Defensive Player of the Year. He's also just one of the most consistently dominant players in the NFL year after year. Just his sacks by year. His rookie year in 2017, he had 7 sacks, 2018, 13.5 sacks, 2019, 10 sacks, 2020, 12 sacks, 2021, 16 sacks, 2022, 16 sacks, 2023, 14 sacks, 2024, 14 sacks. Like you're getting double-digit sacks every year besides his rookie year. Like the last 7 years, he's been double-digit sacks. This year, he was second in the league in sacks. He was first in TFL. So the guy just wrecks the game. Like like Joe mentioned, you have to game plan for him every single game because if you don't, he's going to wreck the game. Now that Aaron Donald retired, he might have the best argument of anybody for the best defensive player in football. Obviously, you can put T.J. Watt in there, Micah Parsons in there, but Myles Garrett probably has the best argument right now for best defensive player in football, and it's not like you can't really deny it. Like this guy is unbelievable. Now, as far as what team I think he goes to, you guys talked about the options. I mean, he wants a championship contender, and if I'm him, I don't want to like get traded to the Chiefs, like the team who always wins. Or if the Eagles win this year, like I don't want to get traded to the Eagles because it's like, they already won, like especially the Eagles, like they already have an elite defensive line. Like I don't want to go to that team. Like I want to be the guy who takes a team over the top. I want to be the guy who this team's been falling short year after year after year. Like I want to take that team over the top. And like I just mentioned, the Lions are a great option for that. Myles Garrett, Aiden Hutchinson, that would be deadly. Also, the offense is going to score a lot of points, we believe, again next year. So other teams are going to have to throw against them a lot, and that's going to lead to Myles Garrett having more opportunities to rush the passer. And Myles Garrett having more opportunities to rush the passer means bad news for the other team's offense. So I think that would be a good place to go. I think the Commanders is also a really, really good place to go. Obviously, you've got some good pieces on that defensive line. Same point on the offense. Like Jaden Daniels, we know he's going to score a lot of points. So like he's going to get a lot of opportunities to rush the passer on that team as well. But who actually gets him? Listen, this team is just going to say, fuck it. We're so tired of this, man. Like, we have to quit losing in the playoffs to the same team. We are so tired of losing to this team in the playoffs. We can't take it anymore. We're going to trade 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and a 4th and go get Myles Garrett, and they're going to go get him. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are going to just say, we don't care. Like, what? Like, we have to get the best player available in this offseason. That's Myles Garrett. You already have a really good defensive line in Buffalo. You add Myles Garrett to that. Maybe you try to convince the Browns, like, hey, you're already losing all this salary. You're already saying fuck it for the next 2 years. Take Von Miller's contract. Hey, do you want Von Miller's contract? You can just have that contract sitting on your books too. We'll give you a player. We'll give you an extra pick if you take Von Miller's contract, So I think that's a possibility as well for Buffalo. But listen, I think they just have to go all in at this point if you're the Bills. Like, you've gotten to the same spot. You get to the same spot every time, and then Patrick Mahomes scrambles around and gets a first down or gets a touchdown to beat you every year, So a great way to prevent Patrick Mahomes from scrambling around and getting a touchdown on you is if you have the best defensive player in football on your defensive line and you go get Myles Garrett. So Myles Garrett's worth it. He's going to bring in a haul. Like I mentioned, I think it's going to be 2 firsts and 2 seconds that it's going to take to get Myles Garrett, and I think we're going to see him on the Buffalo Bills next year.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.